This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I'm here with Jennifer Huether, Master Sommelier, who is representing La Crema from California. How are you, Jennifer?
I am great. How are you, Jamie?
Fantastic. Now, we've known each other for many a year, and I was very happy to find out you are now entrenched with La Crema. How did you find yourself working with La Crema?
Well, I work with Jackson Family Wines, who is based out of Sonoma, and this is one of their beautiful wineries. They have several great wineries that you would be familiar with, and so La Crema is definitely near and dear to my heart. I've known the brand and purchased it for years back in my sommelier days, and now it's great to be on the other side of it and working with it.
Can you remember your first taste of La Crema?
I remember having it back at the ACC years ago when I didn't even realize it was part of Jackson Family Wines. And I remember our customers really loving them and me buying them and selling tons of them and them just being a real staple in our portfolio.
Now, La Crema specialise in Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, growing that all the way from the Willamette up in Oregon, all the way down to Arroyo Seco down in Monterey Bay there.
Yeah.
How do you have an overlying philosophy with a winery when the grapes come from such a broad spectrum of vineyard sources?
Well, that's a great question. Our wine, it all starts kind of from Sonoma, really, where this originated. And Elizabeth Grant Douglas, who has been the winemaker for some time, who's amazing and who is Canadian, incidentally, and studied here at Brock University. And her style, if you will, is to have really great expressions of Pinot Noir and Chardonnay that are really textural, that really have this wonderful kind of palate component. When we think of Pinot Noir, we think of silkiness, and when we think of Chardonnay, we think of creaminess. And they're really on point texturally, and I think that is that you can find that throughout all of these different appellations that she is able to work in now. So it's not just Sonoma. The family has fantastic property in Willamette, for example, and so now she's been able to expand up there and make really interesting wines from there, but still have that same vein of her style, which is purity, but also really, really attractive on the palate.
I guess an inverse question of that would be, how do you see the differentiation between, shall we say, the Willamette and the Carneros Pinot fruit that we just tasted today?
Yes. Okay. Well, they're both delicious. But when we tasted the Pinot, it really was Sonoma. So it had kind of a cherry profile, a little bit of blueberry, and it had a richness and a lushness, if you will. And it was funny because when we tasted the Willamette, it tasted like that place, which is a little bit more earthy, a little more pulled back in the fruit and tighter red fruit. Red cranberry and currant flavor profiles, but it still has that seductiveness. They're not quite as austere as they could be, if you will, from the Willamette, but definitely different places, and they taste different.
Now, a question for you that I've always been pondering upon for the last few years. Did the influence of what I saw as being a rather inconsequential romantic comedy that happened to focus upon wine, did that film still have an impact upon the Californian wine industry to this day?
You know, it's interesting. I feel like that movie and that kind of just really that era, if you will, in California winemaking, just really spun everything in a different direction, didn't it? And Pinot Noir became much more popular. And you're right, to this day, it's still having an effect. I think also stylistically, palates have evolved and changed. So when I think back to, being a young sommelier, I remember White Zinfandel being so hot, and I remember, sort of sweeter styles being more popular. Mm-hmm. And when you look at how the North American palate is evolving, it's slowly moving towards wines that are perhaps fresher in style, maybe a little bit lighter, And these wines certainly offer that. They offer obviously less tannin. They're a little lighter on their feet. They're a little more approachable without food, for example. But Pinot as a grape is certainly hot, hot, hot. And when you think about, all of those wonderful, cool coastal pockets where Jackson Family has vineyards and where these wines are really showing their stuff, it's pretty interesting.
Now, being an old school guy, I'm pretty used to pairing foodstuffs with Burgundy. But when it comes to Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, from the various pockets that you pick your Pinot and Chardonnay from, what have your favorite food pairings been recently with these wines?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think that I love, I had some squab recently that was just like a little bit of char on it. So game birds are always amazing with these wines.
With both the Chardonnay and the Pinot.
They can go both ways, for sure. The difference being from Burgundy to California, obviously, is that they're riper in style, they're more fruit forward, and so you have to really take that into consideration when you think about food pairings. So, if you have a little bit of sauce, for example, when we think recently, Thanksgiving, turkey, cranberry sauce, amazing. Right, because you have a little bit of that fruitiness coming through with the food, and these wines really pair well with it.
So, Jennifer, La Crema is a part of the larger Jackson Family Estate. How does it fit into that puzzle that is Jackson Family Estates?
That's a great question, actually. So, Jackson Family started with Kendall Jackson. You may have heard of that small brand.
Never heard of them.
Back in the early 80s. And since then, Jess and Barbara acquired many wineries as well as started many wineries. So I don't know if you know, La Crema actually originated back in 1979. And so it was a property that they had an opportunity to purchase in Sonoma and really work with this brand and make it into the fantastic brand that it is now. So Jackson Family Wines actually owns several wineries, and they are family owned, which is really amazing. And this is one of their great brands.
And the winery is now centered in the Russian River Valley, I believe.
That's right. They are at Sara Lee's Vineyard, which is spectacularly beautiful, right in the heart of Russian River. So it's fantastic. You can go and visit them now and see this beautiful historic property and this beautiful part of the world.
Jennifer Huether, thank you very much for joining us at Good Food Revolution today. We really appreciate your both your wines, this wonderful lunch at Barbarians, and your company. Always fantastic.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Bye for now.
Bye.